Condemn what has happened. That's what a president does.
Why would he condemn something that he supports? Why would he condemn something that he has encouraged throughout his entire campaign? Why would he has said during rallies, as we've all talked about many times before, go out and beat up as many people as you want to. I will pay for your lawyer bills. He said that a member of Congress who was running for Congress who sucker punched a reporter, knocked him down, was arrested for assault and battery, I believe, said that was his kind of guy because the reporter actually got punched for simply asking a question about health care. And Donald Trump celebrated that. Donald Trump celebrated the good old days when people would just get laid out and carried out on a stretcher, as Donald Trump said. No, listen, he's always, as we've said, he's always encouraged this. He's always celebrated this. He is not shocked by this. Apparently, his silence shows this is exactly what he wants.
Yeah, and Kristen Soltis Anderson, I think it used to be easier to poll people's beliefs, what they support, what they don't support, but this president has put the truth on the line. And I wonder at this point what we would see if we took a look at exactly what people believe to be true when it comes to the press or this presidency.
Well, we know that voters, and not just conservative voters, do have serious reservations about whether they think they can trust the media, that those numbers have been declining over the course of the last decade. But there's a really big difference between saying, you know, I don't know that I can trust everything I see in the news, and I'm going to go Google search to try to figure out how I can cause physical harm to reporters. There's a huge leap there. Now, there are always crazy individuals out there. We had the newsroom shooting that tragically took the lives of some journalists in Annapolis not too long ago. That one was inspired by sort of local issues, personal mental health issues. You had the shooting of Gabby Giffords back during the Obama administration. It wasn't inspired by politics. It was inspired by a young man with severe mental issues who thought that things like the money was being manipulated.
Well, Chris,
but the problem is because you've got individual people who are crazy.
What do you think these are being inspired by?
No, this gentleman, the Coast Guard guy, is 100% inspired by rhetoric coming from the president. My point is that even in the absence...
What about the pipe bomber?
Yep, that was inspired by the president, too. You can look at his van. Joe, let me finish my point. My point is that even in the absence of President Trump, you have individuals who are unstable, and adding additional comments into that existing recipe is a recipe for bad.
Who was the synagogue shooter inspired by as well?
He said it was in part because of white supremacists and the caravan. Joe, you have put words in my mouth. I'm not saying this is not because of the president.
No,
I'm saying that there is existing layers of crazy, and that when you have additional rhetoric added into that, it creates a more unstable situation, which is why I think the president should come out and... I 100% think that President Trump views this as it's like pro wrestling and no one's going to get hurt. And my point is that even in the absence of rhetoric, these are already dangerous professions, the media, politics. And so I think viewing it as, well, this is just pro wrestling and I can say things and it doesn't matter, is a dangerous thing for the president to be doing. And I wish that he would stop.
Van, what do you think?
I don't know if he doesn't know what's going to happen here. I think, especially when he's being boosted by people who are praising him for telling it like it is, for lifting the veil on political correctness, I think everybody knows, and people who want the world to go back to a certain time, everybody knows behind that veil is the threat of real violence. And I'm a Southerner, and if I talk to old journalists who were around during Jim Crow, if I talk to people who were alive during that era, one of the biggest components of that regime was threats against journalists for coming down and covering all these things. And this was kind of like the, we don't like political correctness. We want you to go out and tell like it is. And this was what candidates back then in the Jim Crow South ran on, built their platforms on. They implicitly encouraged attacks on journalists who questioned them. And this is what I think everybody who's sort of in power knows. And the reason for political correctness, for being a strong of the First Amendment, is not just to protect the right to go out and say things in public, it's to protect the real safety of journalists and people who are asking questions. And people who are going against that, who are calling journalists enemies of the people, I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, Joe, in every crime, potential crime, crime committed, crime on the verge of being committed, there's always a motive. Bob Mueller, in his search for truth, he's looking at motives. In Chicago, they're looking at motives. In every crime, there's a motive. In crimes of hate, there are also motives. And the fellow who they grabbed yesterday with the cache of weapons, 15 weapons, and a list of people that he wants to kill, and a list of questions that he asked and posed on the internet, where do they live, who has Secret Service protection, who doesn't, there's a motive. And in this case, the motive is clearly hatred. And the hatred, unfortunately, and the truth of the hatred, the root of the hatred, is often found in the intent of the President of the United States to daily use his Twitter account to divide the country among races, among everything. He's just intent on dividing the country. It's the first time in our history we have had it. We're living through it. Hopefully we will all survive it, but you cannot deny that it is out there. It exists on a daily basis. The President of the United States is a divider.
So, Kristen, I want to circle back to you for a second. You had said that the president sees us all as pro wrestling. I think that may have been the case during the campaign, but don't you think that at 72 years of age, after generating rhetoric that you and I think almost every rational American knows, inspired the pipe bomber to send pipe to his political targets, after Donald Trump's words on his caravan conspiracy theories about Middle Easterners and all the other crazy conspiracy theories, inspired a man to go into a Pittsburgh synagogue and gun down 11 Jewish worshipers, after this Coast Guard arrest where a guy had a stockpile of weapons and a plan to, again, gun down all of Donald Trump's opponents in Congress and all the people that are journalists who Donald Trump perceives as opponents and who has attacked. Don't you think at this point he should, any rational human being that had his mental faculties about him, should they not know that this is not pro wrestling, that his words have actually led to some violent actions, and
I mean,
that
something
he should
happened
back
at his
off it?
rally recently. There was the BBC cameraman who was hurt at the rally in front of him. So you're right that he should know that there are real consequences here. I'm suggesting that he does not think that, and I don't know why, but I believe that is part of why he has not publicly come out and instructed his supporters, hey, let's not take this too far. I think that he does not believe that he is personally responsible. That's very different from to what extent his words actually are responsible for motivating. And clearly in those examples you cited, you had a gentleman whose van was covered with things that included pictures that suggest he was very supportive of the president, and that's what motivated him. But I think even given evidence like that, I don't think President Trump views himself as doing anything more than, it's just words. And I think until he realizes that these words do have serious consequences, I think it's unlikely to see that tweet that you and Mika and that the other folks on this show want to see him tweet.
Michael Steele, what else does he need to see other than 11 people gunned down?
That means he's mentally unstable.
Yeah, he would have to be.
He would have to be.
No.
Absolutely
it's
impaired.
The truth. You would have to be mentally impaired
not to be able to
after
do the math.
Seeing 11 people gunned down in a synagogue by a man inspired by Donald Trump's words, to see a guy
Unstable or
sending
impaired.
pipe bombs around to try to threaten or hurt or kill, again, people that Donald Trump has attacked as his political opponents, his political enemies. And now this Coast Guard situation where this guy had stockpiled weapons for some time and had a plan to go out and gun down people that Donald Trump had identified as his enemies on Capitol Hill and in the press. How could Donald Trump not be aware that his words have actually led to violence and are inspiring others Unhinged.